It was the sound of the metal slide racking back that made my world stop. 5 seconds. That's the sliver of time it took for a petty argument on our quiet street to become a life or death situation. One moment, my wife, Sarah, was standing by our car trying to be the voice of reason. The next, Brenda, from 2 houses down, our neighborhood's resident storm cloud, was aiming a loaded pistol directly at her heart. Before we continue, tell us where in the world are you watching from? Drop it in the comments below. And if you enjoy this story, don't forget to like the video and subscribe for more powerful content like this. I wasn't even supposed to be there. As a Special Forces operator, coming home early from a deployment was my idea of a perfect surprise, but nothing could have prepared me for the horror I witnessed that afternoon. We live in one of those neighborhoods that looks like a movie set. Perfect green lawns, big oak trees, kids laughing on their bikes. But you know how it is. Behind all that curated perfection, there's always a current of drama. And in our neighborhood, Brenda was the source. She wasn't on the HOA board, not officially, but she acted like she was the queen of the cul-de-sac. She was the self-appointed guardian of suburban mediocrity, measuring grass height with a tape measure and leaving passive-aggressive notes about recycling bins left out too long. For the most part, we all just rolled our eyes and tried to avoid her, but that all changed the day she decided to enforce her made-up rules with a firearm. Let me give you some background. My name is Mark. I've spent the last decade in one of the military's most elite units, dealing with situations that are nothing like this, yet somehow exactly like this. My wife, Sarah, is my anchor. She's brilliant, kind, and possesses a level of patience I can only dream of, especially when dealing with Brenda's daily nonsense. I'd been gone for 6 long months on a mission I can't talk about. We stayed connected through brief encrypted messages, but it's never the same. I missed her terribly, so when I got the chance to come home a week early, I jumped on it, deciding to keep it a secret. I envisioned a tearful, happy reunion. Instead, I pulled around the corner just in time to see our local tyrant having a complete meltdown over a parking spot. Sarah had parked our second car, an older but reliable SUV, on the street right in front of our own house. It wasn't blocking a driveway or a fire hydrant. It was just a car on a street. Apparently, this was a capital offense in Brenda's world. I parked my truck out of sight, planning to sneak up and surprise Sarah from behind, but the sound of shouting stopped me. Brenda was storming toward Sarah, her face red and her arms flailing. "You can't park there. This is a violation. I'm reporting you and you will be fined." Sarah, ever the calm one, simply replied, "Brenda, I've checked the bylaws. There's no rule against parking on your own curb. Besides, you resigned from the board last year." That's what pushed her over the edge. "You think you're better than me?" Brenda seethed, her voice dripping with venom. And then she reached into her oversized purse and pulled out a gun. It wasn't small, it was a serious weapon. I froze for a split second as she cocked it. That's when I saw Sarah take a step back, her hands rising slowly. "Brenda, please put the gun down." My training took over. 5 seconds. That was my window to cross the 30 feet between us. 5 seconds to weigh my options. Call for help? Draw my own concealed piece? Or go in empty-handed? I chose empty-handed. "Drop the weapon!" I bellowed, my voice cracking through the suburban silence like a whip. Brenda whipped around, startled, the gun still wavering toward Sarah. Her eyes widened in shock when she saw me, all 6 feet of me in combat boots and a tactical jacket, charging at her like a bull. That moment of hesitation was her fatal error. In 2 more strides, I was on her. I grabbed her wrist, applying a simple compliance technique that made her yelp in pain, and the gun fell from her grasp, clattering onto the asphalt. She shrieked, "He's assaulting me!" Help. I didn't release her until I had her pinned face down on her own perfect lawn, my knee in her back, the weapon kicked safely away. Sarah just stood there, hands trembling, her eyes locked on mine. The whole thing was a blur. Neighbors poured out of their houses, phones instantly up and recording. Sirens wailed in the distance. The local sheriff's deputies arrived in force, guns drawn, expecting a war zone. But as soon as they saw me, my military ID, the gun on the ground, and a dozen witnesses all pointing at the screaming woman on the grass, the situation calmed down. They cuffed Brenda, who was still raving about parking violations and how she was the victim. "She provoked me," she cried as they led her to the patrol car. The lead deputy gave me a long look and said, "Special Forces?" I just nodded. He shook his head. "Quite a homecoming," was all he said. I turned to Sarah, who finally let out a shaky breath and fell into my arms. Later, we sat on our front porch, wrapped in a blanket, as the sun went down. "I really thought she was going to shoot me," she whispered into my shoulder. "I know," I said, holding her tight. "But you're safe. I've got you." Brenda was charged with aggravated assault with a deadly weapon. The HOA formally and permanently banned her from any position of authority, and the neighborhood came together in a way I'd never seen. We had a constant stream of visitors bringing cookies and lasagna. It turned out this wasn't her first time threatening someone, just the first time she'd done it to the wrong person's wife. The whole legal process was a drag, but we got through it. Brenda eventually took a plea deal that included probation and mandatory therapy. Her house went on the market a few months later, but it sat there for a long time. Word gets around, we still live here, and sometimes I look at that spot on the curb and remember how fast everything can change. But the street is quiet now, truly peaceful. And every time I think about those 5 seconds, I'm reminded that you don't need to be in a foreign land to face real danger, and that sometimes the most important battles are fought right at home. If this story resonates with you, don't just scroll past. Hit that like button, drop a comment about a time you had to stand up for what's right, and subscribe for more stories about how everyday people find their strength.